if I'm following God and being obedient to Him, and that is where I'm supposed to be right now, that hardness, He knows that I'm there. He knows that I feel like I'm captive there. He's going to deliver me from that. I don't have to worry about that. And so I love that.
Okay, this is going to be an incredible podcast. Just giving you the heads up. The title alone of What's the Business of Being a Woman? There's a lot of depth in that title, and there's a lot of depth in my guest, Ash Marsh. Stay tuned because you won't want to miss her story, a story of redemption, beauty from brokenness, being available to the Lord to use her husband, the 60 companies they have built, their concept of hospitality to bless their community of Opelika, Alabama, that is already reverberating and blessing other communities around the world because of their influence and the legacy that they're crafting, they're strategizing about, and they're already planning on leaving that will affect generations to come. So thanks for being here and stay tuned for an amazing guest. Welcome back to the Generous Girl podcast. I am thrilled to have Ash Marsh with me here in the studio. And she is a proud native of Opelika, Alabama. And as co-founder and CEO of Marsh Collective, she actively runs a collection of companies that she, along with the co-founder and husband, John, have built. She focuses on the Marsh Collective's operations and strategy. And she's an Enneagram 8, and she fosters strategic relationships that share with her passion for hospitality design to stimulate the company's growth. And I love that she incorporates beauty and creativity and hospitality into the world through creating irreplaceable real estate. And my favorite part of her bio is her definition of hospitality. And that is what she says best summed up through her vision and her leadership style that says, I thought of you before you got here. So welcome, Ash, today to the Generous Girl podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here.
Hey, Kim, thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Yes, and this connection happened. You know, I always feel the guests that are on this show are a God story of how it even happened. And to tell the listener, I was at a conference called Redemptive Real Estate in Santa Barbara, and your son, Nelson, was going to be the keynote speaker that morning, but I didn't know who he was. And he was ahead of me in the coffee line, had on these just really sparkly gold shoes, this incredible jacket. And I saw him and I said, wow, you look so dapper. And that led to like a 45-minute conversation. And I learned all about the Marsh Collective. And then he just went ahead and did an incredible job as the keynote that morning for the conference. And he's the one who said, you need to meet my mom. And then we talked about the Generous Girl podcast, and he thought you would be an amazing guest. And I can totally see why. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you. He is quite the fellow for sure.
And I know you have two sons and quite the story. And so what I thought we would do is we always weave into our podcast a couple of things. We focus on the pillars. So the pillars for today for you are family and finances. But we always have the story of overcoming adversity. And one of the things I loved on your website was how you had that thread showing this is what happened and that led to this. And then the beautiful part of the thread was all the pictures of the individuals that God brought across, you know, your path, and how those people really radically changed your trajectory. And I always feel like these relationships, you know, when we sit next to someone on an airplane, or they feel so random, but then you look back and you realize how they were so not random. And that one person can literally change just the direction you're going. So I would love for you to share just your story that you have shared on. You've been on many podcasts, you've spoken for Generous Giving, but you do have such a beautiful redemptive story about your marriage. So why don't we start there and how that led to the beautiful Marsh Collective?
Of course, absolutely. So John and I met right after I graduated high school, actually, not by a date or anything. I actually met him whenever he had another girlfriend. and really didn't think anything about it, but then ran into him again at a car stereo shop. And I think that's mentioned on that timeline.
Yes.
I was doing bookkeeping for the gentleman that owned the stereo shop, and he just liked me. He thought I was just a good Southern girl, and he didn't like John's girlfriend. And so he made a bet with me that I couldn't get John away from her. And I said, "You're on. I'll take it." And I got him.
That's the Enneagram 8 in you.
Yeah, it's pretty deep in me for sure. And so I challenge myself more than I challenge others, hopefully. But yeah, so I got John, and everything was great, and we just hopped right into a relationship with one another, and that turned into a disaster. We didn't know God. We weren't making any choices that lined up with anything good, honestly. And we destroyed one another. We destroyed our marriage. And so out of that, we actually ended up going through divorce. We had adultery, drugs, bankruptcy. I mean, you name it. I think we were involved in it. We touched on all the deadly sins in the Bible. But out of that, God's such a gracious God. He met us in the place that was the most really unknown places that people get met by God. Usually we're told we have to be in a church, or we think we have to be in a church. Maybe we're not told that. Or we have to be in the presence of someone to lead you to the presence of God to be saved. But that didn't happen for John and I. John and I had brokenness at two different times. He in the attic of our house when he went to hang himself, and me on the floor of an old living room in the house that we had not restored yet, after having a miscarriage and not knowing if it was his child or the gentleman I was having an adulterous affair with. And so there were these two broken people that reached out and cried out to a God that they had never met before, and God met them. And that obviously was life changing,
Right.
And healing. But then there we were, we didn't know what to do, And so we went to a church. Thankfully, we found a beautiful pastor here. He's at a Baptist church here locally, and just amazing man. And he was wise enough to know to say, "Hey, I can tell you the word of God, and I can teach you, and I will preach well and give great sermons to give you encouragement and everything. But I've never been through what you've been through, so I can't comfort you in the way that you need comforted." And so he sent us to a couple that had been through what John and I had been through, almost to the T, and they discipled us, and that's what started our counseling. We went for 7 years, like daily. We talked to this couple. We had
so life-giving. I just love like their own brokenness helping to restore your brokenness. So
they taught us how to do that. And so out of that, honestly, out of being discipled, out of going through so much brokenness, and out of those 7 years, it took us 6 years of those 7 years to restore our house that we were living in that was in the worst neighborhood in Opelika. And we did it literally a paycheck at a time, a week at a time, a doorknob at a time, whatever we could do.
Yes.
And we ended up having this beautiful home that was like a beacon in that neighborhood that was so broken and forgotten. And, we were able to bring love to the neighborhood and love to people that no one saw anymore. And we knew that God was going to use us to heal broken places and broken people. And so we look for it now. We don't even want anything that looks good or polished in any way.
Wow. And so that's how you started in your dwelling where you are now in Opelika, Alabama. And I believe I saw you now with the Marsh Collective have restored over 300 historic structures, homes.
We have. We've done buildings and homes, actually within around about a 10-block radius. We've done a few outliers, but yes, 300 properties in Opelika. We've started, or we've either personally started or helped facilitate the starting of 60 businesses in our community as well. We're implemented to. I mean, we just believe that we're responsible. God gave us that vision to bring impact and change, and to heal the broken places in Opelika, and that's our calling. And so this is where we focus. This is where we stay, and we're looking forward to doing more. So right now we're working on a big community I'd love to tell you about. sometime during
Absolutely.
this podcast.
Go ahead now.
Okay.
Let's do
So we're
it.
working on a community. We call it the Southerly community, and Southerly just meaning all things Southern. We just believe that, there's something beautiful about celebrating where you're from, and we're true Southerners. He's Georgia boy, and I'm Alabama girl. So, but our community, what we're doing is we have our event venues there. We have we'll eventually have 60 overnight stay rooms. We'll have 8 different concepts of restaurants and entertainment venue, such as like Nelson that you met. We'll have a wine concept there. But we'll have different concepts there. And one of the primary things that we're so excited about doing is having what we are calling like a hospitality hospital. And also a hospitality institute. The hospitality hospital is for the people that have actually been in that field of hospitality, whether restaurants, hotels, different things like that have brokenness, because the environments that a lot of times that these individuals work in is just a broken environment. There's a lot of drugs. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of abuse of how management maybe controls those particular roles and everything.
It doesn't pay well.
Yeah, it's just broken. And so we actually encounter a lot of young people and older people that have just gotten trapped in that system, and they don't know anything else to do. They don't want to do anything else, but maybe they have got to the place that they've run into addictions. They've lost their family. They've lost their homes. So we want to bring those people in, and we want to love on them. We want to restore back to them dignity in that workplace, and actually help them recreate who they are according to what they love, and how to do it with God's hands and God's heart, and just love on them. But we want to put them back in the workplace whole and not broken. And so we're looking forward to that. And then our Hospitality Institute will be, we want to teach people how to think of others before they got there, because it's what God does for us. And so that came to me in a quiet time. My quiet time is staring out a window early in the morning with a cup of coffee. A lot of people think that's weird, but I just sit and look at my trees and just try to absorb being still. And God just showed me, one morning, it's like, I thought of you before you got here. And I was thinking of my favorite verse. I know we'll talk about that later, when he showed me that. And I was like, oh, that's why we love being anticipated. That's why we recognize it when it happens to us. And so it's like, I love that God anticipates me. And so that's what I want to give to others, is to show them that I anticipated you. So.
And why is that so important? But it is so true. Like, you can go to someone's house and you feel like, wait, am I interrupting? I didn't mean, they knew you were coming, but you don't sense the hospitality, versus you go to the person's house and, I've been in places where they have the little signboard and it says, "Welcome, Kim." And that little signboard means so much. Or you're going in the room where you're sleeping and they have the little bottle of water. And it's honestly just the thought that they have thought ahead of time, where they've asked you, what kind of creamer do you like in your coffee? The details. And as we know, our God is such a God of details. And of course, he thinks about us all the time, and all these beautiful things he gives us every day: the sunsets, the sunrises, the birds. He does think about us. So I love how you pull that into your business. Can you share some other practical ways within the hospitality business that you found really kind of minister to people's souls as guests?
Yeah. I actually have a fun intake form. If you come to my house or to our business, and I ask all kinds of fun questions. But like, I want to know what temperature you want your room. I want to know what kind of pillows you want. I want to know what's your favorite music, colors. That's just all the different things.
Wow, even colors.
The thing is that hospitality a lot of times can be confused, especially Southern hospitality, can be confused with the act, and it's actually the heart. And what I have found is it's a preparation. And so even Jesus tells us that he's going to prepare, right? He's leaving us to prepare our mansions for us. I mean, he's up there, the carpenter of all carpenters, is preparing for us. And it's just incredible that if we take the time actually in our business, when we're thinking of the contracts we're given, we're thinking of how we answer the phone, we're thinking of how we look at people when they come into our space. Are we exuding actually presence? Are we remembering that, to be approachable? Are we considering that the others might actually need, I guess, to know that you prepared for them instead of having to ask if you prepared for them?
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something about presence that God wants us to have. It's an awareness, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes you very purpose driven. It gives you the ability to align that with what your vision is for your home or for your business or for your staff or your kids and all that. And honestly, it's not hard.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's being present and aware, you know, so.
Well, so what's your timing like of that vision with the Southerly being completed? When do you hope that all to be finished by?
So we currently have 3 venues. We have 2 beautiful indoor venues and 1 outside venue. Those are currently operating. We started one of them 8 years ago. Another one came on last year, and 1 comes on this spring. And now we have 7 overnight stay rooms that will be coming available 1st of February. We're absolutely tickled and cannot wait to have our first guest in there. They'll be there about mid-February. It will be a wedding party that's staying there. And just getting to have the touches of loving on people immediately and them being connected to an event that's so special and so important. We just love that. And what we're doing is we're approaching it. Actually, we hired a lady. Her name's Donna. We've made her our intentionality officer. That's her whole role. Her role is to watch me, listen to me, and she's in my home a lot. And it's like, I want everywhere here to be an extension of our home. These people may never come to our home, but I want that to be like what they feel like. I want them to know that this must be what it's like to be in Ash's and John's home. And so everywhere, our offices, if you go to the bathroom, I don't care where it is. If you walk on our block, that's how I want it to feel. Because I just think that it shows that we intended to take care of you and love you.
Right.
And then we have Nelson's first concept. We'll be starting that in October of this year. And then the other ones will come alongside. So I think it will be finishing around the end of 2025 is when we'll put a bow on it. And all the triggers will be pulled. And John and I will be able to just really get to do things that we love and God's given us as passion and purpose. And I mean, we have fun every day. We get to go do what we love to do. It's just amazing. It's terrifying a lot of times because we're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? But that's how we know, that's a confirmation to us that it's not us, because we couldn't figure these things out on our own. It's very complex and it's a God thing. So.
Yeah, 60 different businesses under the Marsh Collective. And what I love too about your story, your whole family's story, is even when I heard Nelson share, you know, how he went over to Italy and then decided to take classes on how to make wine and was so enthralled by it that, well, I should bring this back to Opelika and I should have an incredible relationship with these people in Italy. And now he has this whole business bringing those beautiful wines to Opelika. And that's, again, just the randomness. It seems so random, but it's not random. And then he talked about just these different restaurants he's been at in Italy that have influenced his view of beauty and how he's used those concepts, the food and how the decor, to transform these spaces in Opelika. So I feel like everything that has come your way, you've incorporated into this beautiful Marsh Collective. And I love that you have the consulting side of it, so that if you feel very called to Opelika and other people then come to you because they feel called to wherever it is that God has called them, and you're allowing this beauty and the learnings that God has given you then to transform these other spaces around the world.
Oh, absolutely. The interesting thing about Italy is it reminds us so much of home when we're there. We just connect well with it, mainly in the very small regions, nothing that's touristy or anything, but like true mom and pop little vineyards and businesses and such. But one of the things, when we went there for Nelson's wedding this past year, he got married in January of 23. And
I met his lovely wife too at the conference.
Oh, Mary Catherine.
Yes.
I have the best daughter-in-laws, like ever. It makes me want to cry when I think of them. They are so beautiful and precious to me. Mary Catherine is a quiet soul, and she allows Nelson just to expand and just
Yes.
be everything, and it doesn't intimidate her at all. She absolutely celebrates it, and I love that about her.
Yes. I
Um,
love that too. I could already see that when I talked with her for that
yeah.
that time.
And then Joshua, our youngest son, his wife's name is Caitlin, and I call her my diamond in the rough. She is the most wonderful, free spirited, just outspoken. I just adore her. I adore her. She's so authentic. It's frightening. I wish more people would be like her. But going back to Italy, one of the things that we noticed when we were there is that Italy has an ability to almost force pause on you, and it causes you to slow down. Obviously, they have a different tempo about themselves, but the way that they actually serve you is a form of hospitality that brings you into presence when you're being served. And a lot of times it's easy to receive hospitality here in the States because you almost expect it. You
Mm-hmm.
expect for people to, I mean, we walk with a lot of unspoken expectations in a lot of areas. And so if we
Yes.
go to a restaurant, we expect our server to be nice to us, and we expect the food to be good, and we expect a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they almost twist that around in Italy to the place of that they bring you into that conversation by causing you to be calm and pause and expect to be seen and expect to be heard and expect to see the respect of the farmer that might have provided the wine or the fruit or the veggies or whatever it might have been. They just cause you to pause. And
Right.
that's their expectation that they have on you, is just to be willing to pause. And I love that. I love that they have an unspoken expectation of almost like a way to say, hey, there's gratitude that you can
Uh-huh.
give that you don't even know that you have because you're not
Mm-hmm.
seeing it if you're too busy or in a hurry, you know? And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
but yeah, we love Italy. Nelson's got a great passion for it. And honestly, one of the things that we see him carrying over, I guess, into from the family, our family views and everything on how to love others well, is that his total purpose that he has connected to that is the vintners and the vine growers and caretakers of the vine and the farmers,
Yes.
and he loves them. And so even when we talked about his business of importing and everything coming in, it was a non-negotiable to him that we would not serve them well, that we would not pay them the highest price that they could ask, and then we deal with our side of it. It's a form of giving to us.
I remember him saying that that he treasured those relationships so much, and he wasn't going to at all undercut them, that he was going to pay them well, which has now allowed for this long-lasting friendship, relationship, and
It's
incredible business.
it's incredible. If you ever go to Italy, let him know you're going, and you will be impressed at what tables you'll sit at. They'll be the most common tables, and you'll have the greatest experience that you've ever had because you're brought into their actual homes, and you get to sit with their family. You got the farm dog and all the kids and grandkids, and I mean, it's just fabulous. It's really truly fabulous, and there's something
I'm
special.
glad you said that, because actually my husband and I have these friends, and they sent an email a year ago about celebrating their birthday in Italy in June of this year.
Oh,
And they invited us, and they said we're having some of our closest friends be there. So I talked with them and I said, so how many people are going to be at this event? It's kind of like you get your own lodging, but they're going to be gathered in this one little town in Italy for a few days. And I thought she was going to say like 20 people, but she said 300 people.
oh wow,
All
that's
right,
impressive. Yeah.
I know. So I need to for sure connect with Nelson, because I'll probably have a couple of days, at the end of that trip. And I would love, love, love to do that. And the other thing you reminded me of when you were talking was when our kids were in high school, we had an Italian exchange student live with us for that school year. And he went to the, American high school here in Orange County. But I would get my coffee and I'd jump in the car to do the carpool. And he was like, Mrs. Moeller, you cannot do that. Like, you must stop when you drink your coffee. You can't
Yes.
be. It was like sacrilegious to be on the go trying to drink your coffee or, eat breakfast or whatever. Like, it is an experience, even at their beautiful, the gas stations, they have those little places where people stand around the counter and have the beautiful cappuccinos. And so I learned from Marco. I was like, you know what, you are right. Like, I need to, really enjoy this cup of coffee. So
be present with your coffee.
Yes, be present with your coffee. Okay. I want to make sure a couple of things here. I want to make sure I cover a few questions surrounding the Opelika business. And then I want to go into what we talked about before this recorded conversation about, and it's what we're titling the podcast, like, what's the business of being a woman? Because you have such a heart for women and just their abilities and how God might use them. So before we get to that section, I want to just go through a few questions. So you've mentioned what led you to this choice, to be like to live and give in Opelika. And you said this is where God has called you. And it reminded me of the Bible verse, because I've been in real estate. I have my license for a long time. And I've always shared this verse with people, Acts 17:26. And it says, from one man, he made every nation of men that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined their appointed time and the boundaries of their lands. And because I've seen people, I'm not practicing real estate now because I work full-time at the National Christian Foundation, but I love places, I love spaces, the transformation of beauty. And then I've seen people, when I was focusing more, full-time in real estate, I saw people's hearts get set on properties, and then it wouldn't happen, and they would lose it and somebody else would get the property. But in the end, when you saw the property that they landed with, you knew that God had that all along. So can you address that a little bit of like how your heart is content now to be in Opelika because of how God's called you there?
Sure. There was a season of not being content with that. When John and I first had our marriage restored, and we committed to God in our marriage, we did everything we could to get out of Opelika because we felt so exposed here. We had done so many transactions financially that were just not above reproach at all. And we had done things to hurt people. We were liars and thieves at one time. We were just not, we were not people that could be blessed. And we did that to each other as well. So when we were going through our divorce, we tried to destroy one another by just talking awfully about one another. So of course, as soon as we reconciled our marriage and everything started happening, we're like, we want to get out of here. Let's get out of Dodge. Let's go start new somewhere. And we went to, I believe, 4 bankruptcy lawyers, and none of them would help us file bankruptcy. I'm like, how is this even possible? I thought they couldn't tell you no, And so then we started looking. We looked at moving back to Albany, Georgia. We looked at houses all over. We couldn't afford anything, so we were trying to get someone to own or finance it to us or whatever. And no matter what, we just kept being pushed back to this old house that we had that had, no HVAC. It was just horrible disrepair, no heat in it. We had one bathroom that barely worked. It was just a bad situation, bad neighborhood. And here we were. And so we just started working on it a little bit at a time. We moved down in the basement. Me, John, Nelson, a puppy, and one of his friends lived in about 700 square feet. It's quite interesting, by the way. And so anyhow.
It's a tiny house.
Very tiny. You find out a lot about each other when you live like that. But, we started working back on this house and restoring it. And 6 years later, here we are. We have a restored marriage. We have a restored home. And we found that we're a beacon of hope. And we don't even know what we did except for be obedient to God. And so I don't know if that's necessarily answering your question, other than the fact that what we found was if we just honestly trusted that God can use us with where we are, then he can use us with where we are. And we became the somewhere people. It's not anywhere people. We don't want to be anywhere people.
Right.
And our somewhere is Opelika. And so that's what God put into our heart. And we knew once we recognized that, he started giving us vision for like 75 years, 100 years. What can we do that impacts our children's 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 children? And we build our plans with that. Our boys are sitting at the table now looking at how do we impact our children's children. And that is that is what I believe God intends for us to do with our inheritance and our receivers of our inheritance. Biblically, spiritually, economically, in all the areas that we're supposed to bring impact.
And so do you focus all your giving then on Opelika rather than other parts of the world?
We do. Yeah. Actually, I'm trying to remember if it was at Generous Giving or the Gathering. We're listening to one of the NCF talks, but they talked about the different types of giving, whether or not it was locally or nationally or globally, and just gave some good questions of challenge, like who are you, which person are you, and after John and I really prayed about that, and because we were questioning, should we be giving more globally and or nationally even, or should we give more to certain groups particularly, nonprofits or otherwise. And we came to just knowing in our hearts that this is where we give. And so we give by, we give houses away. I won't say we give jobs away. We hire people that don't have skills and pay them what they need to be paid so that they can actually live. People that don't really know which end of the hammer to use, honestly. And we're patient and kind with that because it's like we
believe in them.
And we give our time to help other entrepreneurs. We help build businesses. We start businesses. We fund those businesses, set up the systems for them to run those businesses. And so, we look at it more globally, internally, of how can we give all of ourselves and all of our giftings. Mine and John's greatest giftings, if we had $10 billion, it wouldn't be to give money. That's just not how God equipped us. We're wise with our money, and He has blessed us with our money, and we're free to give it where He tells us to give it. But right now, He's telling us Opelika. And so this is where we are. So when people call us and ask us, it's like, we know where our gift goes. It goes right here, right into our ground here.
Right. And you mentioned ahead of the podcast to me that sometimes with the charities that are in Opelika, you'll let them use your space, or your church uses your venue space. Or
yeah, absolutely.
Partner that way.
Yeah, we want, and when we do that, we do it as if you're a full paying person. So they get all the stops and all the bells and whistles. But we want to be a blessing to anything that we have. We want to be like this with it. Because it's God's. And we know that, we have time and money. Those are our resources that God gave us to steward, just like He gave it to everyone else. And so all of our resources, not just our bank account, is what we look at. Is it our team members? Is it our home? Our home is always full of people traveling from all over. There'll be a couple here from England today. And so we'll have a couple here next weekend. We do marriage intensives in our home. We give away what was given to us to restore our marriage. We work faithfully on giving time to marriages. So we'll give, by the end of this year, we'll have at least 30 days that we've dedicated bringing people into our home, and we do eyeball to eyeball, trying to help be repairs of the breach.
So generous.
So, well, so we want to be generous. So we ask God.
You are generous.
He's given us to give it away.
Okay, final question on this segment, because I want to make sure you can address the business side that I alluded to. So what advice would you give to someone who just hears this podcast and they feel really passionate about wanting to invest in their own community, wherever that is?
Well, earlier when we talked about that, I said one of the first things that we have to know is that you have a vision, and most people think they have a vision, they have an idea. But I'm going to be bold and step out there because, I think God calls us to be bold. But I would say get in touch with us, honestly, if you want to do that.
100%.
Because we are general contractors of vision. We help you take that and really honor what God has given to you. And we make sure that you understand what it takes, not just financially, but with people. You got to have an intercessor just as much as you have to have an investor. And the intercessor on their knees that absolutely is praying in the way that God calls them to pray can be just as valuable as someone with tens of millions, billions of dollars.
That's right.
Yep. They're all equal to God whenever He's saying, I need this at the table for this to work. And so having the right team and everything. But I would say being bold. I would say just contact us, just email us and tell us what you're trying to do, and we'll talk to you.
Marscollective.com. Okay, so let us hear from you and this vision you have for women and businesses. And I feel like we could do like a whole day seminar with all the wisdom you have to share, but I'd love some nuggets for women listening who, might be at this new stage in their life and they're wondering what God's calling them to do and stepping into a new business would love to hear your thoughts on this.
So my passion for women is the fact that I believe that we straddle two places. We either diminish ourselves because we obscure what the reality is of what true submission is and being a woman to either your husband or to your church or your community or whatever place you have. Speaking to single women and married women as well. And I think the other side of that is we can become too independent and actually get out ahead of our skis and just kind of make a mess of things and not really honor the roles that are around us that are men or otherwise, that work with us. So what I find is that, first of all, be curious about yourself and understand who you are so you can understand what it's like to be on the other side of you. If you can't express what you are thinking or what you need, there's a problem. And I think most women don't know how to express what they need. And if they can't do it at home, they're sure not going to do it in business. They're not going to be able to direct their business in a way that's actually, I think, successful. So one of the things that I would encourage, first of all, if you're in the phase where you are at home or you have children at home or you haven't really stepped over into maybe running your own business or going out to a career-based option, I would suggest to you that your career, if you have a stay-at-home mom, your career being a stay-at-home mom will stop one day and you will no longer have children at home, and you might be a stay-at-home woman, but you won't be a stay-at-home mom anymore. And so what does your life look like after that? And I think that there's nothing wrong with asking that. And I think it's just being eyes wide open and going into your future boldly and saying, I'm going to do this. This is
creating the vision.
Yes, a vision. And so about 3 years before our youngest child left, John's like, hey, we've got a sunset happening over here at this part of your life. You've homeschooled all these years. You've helped build these businesses and everything, but you've been kind of in the background. What do you want to do? And I was like, gee, I don't know. Most women, I think, spend their lives taking care of so many other people's thoughts and ideas and dreams that they forget to do it for themselves. What a sad thing that there's a lot of women that have dreams that don't say what they really dream of. Because remember that dreams come from God. Vision comes from God. It's like, and to really hold on to that and not think, oh, that's what I should have done at one time in my life, but maybe that's just not for me anymore. I've had kids now, or I did this or I did that. And it's like, how about go back to whenever you were that little girl, that little 7-8-year-old girl, and say, what was your dream then? That's about one of the purest times that our mind was wide open to imagination.
That's
and
right.
Imaginations are typically connected to what we really believe we want to do. And that's usually because we're so pure that we can still hear what God's saying to us, even at that age. So I always encourage women, go back and look at that. Be prepared to change your career and be prepared to build a vision for what that looks like. And step that out and have a vision partner with you that can walk that through with you. And if you're not married, find a woman that you look up to that has her ducks in a row and that she's godly, she's faithful, she's diligent, she's kind, she's patient. She's all the things that actually encompass what you believe is a faithful woman that God will bless. She's a Proverbs 31 woman. That woman is incredible. And that's what I aspire to be to women that are around me and anyone that I mentor, is to teach them what is that today in 2024. What's a Proverbs 31 woman doing? She's impressive.
Oh, that's so beautiful because it allows us to redeem our lives and what we've been given and not to lament, because I think it can be easy for people to look back as, oh, the 20s, those were my best years, or the 30s, they were my best years, or when I was in high school. But we wouldn't still be here if God didn't have this incredible plan and that he wants to use us for and to give us that joy. And I think I love your perspective, because we've all been given however many days we have. And I'm a part of this Facebook group. It's called Grown and Flown. There are probably, I don't know, millions of people literally who are in the group. And it's about your kids have flown and now they're gone. And one person talked about, like, why do we call it an empty nest? That sounds so negative. Like, why don't we call it the love nest, or, just another way of like reframing it. And I, even the terms that our society calls it, that can sound negative, of like, well, now the nest is empty, those best days are over. And no, I just want to reject that, because every season has its beauty. And I think we're called, to enjoy and embrace the beauty of the day, and not wish for tomorrow, not wish for yesterday. Because when we're fully present, then we can hear his voice, and we can know what he wants us to do. And we can redeem, like you said, the beauty out of the brokenness. And he's got, like, women have so much power in the way they're created, and this whole great wealth transfer that's happening with the trillions of dollars that are going to be going to women, and just how women are wired. I mean, men are wired in an amazing way, and women are wired in an amazing way. And we have so much to offer. And I so agree with you with the dream side of things, and I want to encourage the listener to take that next step. If you're hearing Ash's story, just take the next step, whatever that is, to be all that you were made to be, to figure out when you were 7, what was your dream that God placed in your heart.
Yeah. And why? I mean, be curious about yourself. That's one of my greatest things that I tell my young ladies when I spend time with them. It's like, when's the last time you sat, maybe looked in the mirror, or not looked in the mirror, but just be curious about yourself. Why do I think like I think? And why do I say what I say? And how do I do that? And so, but just curiosity is huge. One of the things that I had a young lady call me that I mentor. She was at an FCCI conference, and she called and she's like, "Ash, she's an introvert. I'm an introvert, so I get that." And she was like having this moment where almost like I'm gonna say a panic attack, but she could just feel a lot of anxiety. And she's like, I'm about to step in this room, and I'm with my husband, but it's just, oh man, there's so many men here. There's not a lot of female presence, and I want to be a part of the conversation, but I don't know if I have anything to bring that's of value to them. And I listened to her, and I just told her, I said, hey, I want you to go step back in that room. And I said, I'm going to tell you the normal coach things. I want you to stand up straight. I want you to pull your shoulders back. I want you to hold your head up, keep that chin strong. I said, but I want you to have this mentality. You are the solution to the problem in the garden. Remember that. God saw that there was a problem, and he created a solution. I said, so the power you hold in that solution and how you use it, that's going to be up to you. But God has a pathway for you to use it to absolutely, like you said, women are powerful, to actually guide and lead conversation that matters. For you to be able to speak up and where men listen to you, not because you're manipulating and not because you're being controlling, but because you're saying truth and because you're speaking with the power that God put in you. We need to be heard. Godly women need to be heard. They need to be in business. They need to lead. And there's a pathway, there's a methodology that God gave to us. He gave us so many examples throughout his word. And if we would just study those women and just ask God, show me how I can actually implement that type of faithfulness, that type of leadership, that type of willingness to go all in and not understand why I'm going. I mean, if we had the gumption to actually be who God called us to be, this world would be absolutely different. But it takes a lot of gumption. It takes a lot of willingness to step up and be like, I am, and I say that to myself often, like, all right, Ash, you are the solution. God made you as a solution. What is the problem that you need to solve today, right now? Be a problem solver.
It's great, Ash. Well, I know you need to go be with your guests from England, even though I'd love to keep you on this podcast for a lot longer. But thank you for all your wisdom. Thank you for how you've allowed God to use your own story to redeem so many people's lives, and how this whole Hospitality Institute is going to change many, many people's lives. Just those ripples that are going to go around the world from your faithfulness, John's faithfulness. And it's just so beautiful. So as we wrap it up. What is your favorite Bible verse and a book you're reading and a bargain?
Want me to start with that order, or does it matter? My favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 29:11. But I've actually more recently enjoyed Jeremiah 29:14. So 29:11 is like, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not harm you all the days of your life. And it's amazing. It's like whenever you think of the God of all knows his plans that he has for you. It's like, it's pretty cool. I like that. Again, I thought of you before you got here. Right. And so this was one of the scripture I was thinking on whenever I was meditating that morning. But in 14, it says that he will bring you back from captivity, the place that he calls you to be held captive. He'll bring you back from that. So it reminds me of the places that are hard, the places that are so difficult in my life, that from business or kids or whatever, it's like, if I'm following God and being obedient to him, and that is where I'm supposed to be right now, that hardness, he knows that I'm there. He knows that I feel like I'm captive there. He's going to deliver me from that. I don't have to worry about that. And so I love that. Book that I'm reading, I'm on my third time reading it.
That must be a really good book.
Love it. It's called The Great Blue Hills of God by Gill. And she actually started, her and her husband started Ruby Tuesdays. But they are famous for blackberry farms. And the reason why I love it so much is because she's so transparent about her life of walking through all of these different heartaches and hardships, but then how God used that to actually bring restoration. And ultimately, she talks about what it is to really be a hostess and to give hospitality in your home. And she brings an ease about it that relates to being who God calls us to be as women. And it really touches on Martha and Mary, And so I just love it. I love that she is so transparent and so willing to give a part of her life in order for others to step from and succeed. And especially in the hospitality field that I love so much. So that's one of my favorite books.
I am going to read that.
It's an easy book to read, and then it's got so many nuggets in it. It's going to be incredible. My greatest I have two bargains, and I talked with my assistant whenever you gave me the question. And I was like, I don't know which one to use. She said, give them both. So my greatest bargains. First would be the easiest one to say is downtown Opelika. That was a bargain because nobody wanted it. Typically, bargains are because nobody wants them, right?
Yes.
And so, again, the lost and forgotten and it's like shoved to the side. John and I were those people for so long. We know what it's like to be the bargain. And so, Opelika was a bargain, and we're thankful for that. But my greatest bargain, the greatest that I have ever had in my life is my husband. I won him on a bet for $500, and I got paid the $500. And I got him. And I would say it's a heck of a bargain. He has turned out to be quite valuable to me.
Oh my goodness. That is great. That is great. Well, you are the best. I just so thank you for your son connecting us. What a great treat. And I know women are blessed by this conversation and hearing your story. I know they will be, and their lives are going to change. Just from your generosity, your time, talents, your treasures. Thank you for all that you, John, the Marsh Collective does in Opelika. And it's on my list. I want my husband and I to visit it. One of our kids went to Alabama, so we have a Roll Tide in our family. And I got to get back.
Yeah, you let us know when you're visiting. We'll host you here.
Oh, thank you so much. God bless Ash. And I'm excited to see just the new, the decade and the hundreds of years that go forward and the legacy that you all are leaving. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kim. You're welcome. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the Generous Girl podcast. We're so glad that you're here. And if you know of someone that you think needs to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to us. New episodes are released every other week, and you can follow us on YouTube and on all platforms. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.